Hey everybody, welcome to Bestie Book Reviews. I'm here with my bestie Mandy.
And I'm here with my bestie, Jessica.
Okay, so you guys, these are glaring. You guys wanted us to do you liked our first and favorites that we did as a combination. So we've decided to do first and favorites of authors that are personal to us. Is that how we're going to explain it?
Ones that maybe we haven't both read a lot of, but one of us, like ones that we have read a lot
Yeah,
of on our
yeah,
own.
yeah. So, okay. So, but before we do that,
Well, we would love it if you would subscribe, like, and comment below. And if you are enjoying these, we thought it would be fun to offer up that we could do first and favorites for authors that you would like to see us talk about. So if there's an
Mhm.
author you want to see, if you want to see future videos of this, like another video like this, but with your guys' requests for the authors, and that can be authors that you don't even know if we've read, that's totally okay. We'll go through your whole list in a video. So leave those in the comments and we will do a video like that soon. So you can give us as many authors as you want in the comments and we will go through all of them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get started with this. So,
Okay.
okay. So the first, what are we doing?
Well, I've been losing weight. And so my ring is loose on my finger and I was fiddling with it and it slid right off and fell on the ground. But I
And
have a cat and dogs and so I didn't want to leave my wedding ring on the ground. Sorry.
I know I took my glasses off, but I can't see you because you're on the other side of my desk. I am in the warehouse, guys, so hopefully the echo isn't too bad. Um, but yeah, like that, I have to be able to see you. So sorry, we're dealing with a glare. Okay, so the first author that I have on my personal list here is A. Zavarelli. I've read 21 of A. Zavarelli's books, which then led into Natasha Knight, but that's a whole different story. So the first book that I read for her from her or of hers back in the day was Crow, which is the first book in her Boston Underworld series. Yes, I know you're laughing because this is on your shelf still. This is a bind up of the
Right
first two
there.
books in that series. Yeah. Crow is an Irish mafia. I want to say it is one of my favorite Irish mafias I've ever read. It is about our heroine who her roommate goes missing, and so she goes looking for her roommate, which leads her to Sláinte, which is a bar ran by our hero who is in the Irish mafia, and stuff happens from there. So I did like it a lot. I like it a lot. My favorite book by her, though, is Requiem of the Soul, which is a trilogy that she wrote with Natasha Knight. It sets up, it's like one of the first books in their IVI world. It sets up that world. It is about our hero who forces Ivy Moreno to marry him out of revenge. And he has his face has been scarred. And so he actually had a skull mask tattooed on half of his face. And it's a forced marriage romance. You guys know, like in a secret society, you know that that's my thing. So this is my favorite of hers.
Okay, first up, I have Jewel E. Ann. I've only read 9 of her books. She has way more than that, but I just started reading her about a year ago. My first book by her was Look the Part, and oh my gosh, I absolutely love this. Flint is like a stuffy attorney, and he rents out the space above his office to this like free spirited therapist who uses music to help her students. And she just rubs him the wrong way, but she's always super nice to him. But he has a son who has some special needs. And she connects with the son in a way that he's never really seen anybody be able to do. So therefore, his his he begins to become intrigued by her a little bit and maybe break down some of the walls. I really, really enjoyed that one, which then led me to reading more of her books. And as I was doing that, one of our viewers suggested I try A Place Without You, which then became my favorite Julianne book. I read this in January, declared it like my number one read of the year. I love this one so much. It's about Bodhi and Henna. They meet at Coachella And then they end up going their separate ways due to different things. And it turns out they actually live in the same town. And Bodhi is the new counselor, guidance counselor at the school. And Henna still goes to school. Even though she's old enough to have graduated, there's something that has happened that has made her have to be like she still has a year of school to complete. And so that things get very, very messy then. Loved it.
Okay. Well, I
Obviously, since
mentioned
it was my favorite.
obviously it's all good. So I mentioned that when the A. Zavarelli and it kind of led into Natasha Knight, who is my next author. I actually started reading Natasha Knight before I did A. Zavarelli. I thought they were the same person for a very long time, and I am not the only one, according to Natasha. So I have read 28 of Natasha Knight's books. My very favorite or very first book that I read by her was Taken, which is I think it's Taken and Mine. It is a duet that I read back in February of 2020. So I read it forever ago. But it is about a heroine who is at a club one night and she meets this guy. She has a one night stand with this guy. The next day, he insists on driving her home and taking care of her. She's there with a friend. And then he kind of becomes a little bit obsessed with, like, he likes her and he takes her information. So he knows who she is. He's a part of the mafia. And then she sees something happen to this friend that is really bad. And so she goes on the run. And she takes a little something with her that belongs to the mafia man. And he goes searching. He doesn't know that she's taken it. It shows up 9 months later. So, and then my favorite book by Natasha is her To Have and to Hold trilogy. But the first book is With This Ring, which we are actually is in our current Coveted cover box. And that is about our hero who bursts in on our heroine's wedding day when she is in a tower. It is mafia. He wants revenge on her family. There's a lot of revenge happening around here. And so he takes her for revenge after murdering all of her brothers and forces her to marry him. And then it all goes downhill from there. So
how many books of hers did you say you've read?
28. Okay. Yeah. I binged them for a while there. So yeah. Who do you have next?
Okay, next I have Lauren Blakely. I've read 15 of her books. The first book I read by her was called The Start of Us. I rated it 3 stars. I don't think I really liked it because I read it a couple years ago and I wouldn't really rate any, like if I rated something a 3-star back then, like I really didn't like it, but felt guilty rating it lower than that. I don't remember what it was about. I read the synopsis and nothing clicked for me. So I'm not going to talk about it.
Okay. All right.
Favorites by her are they were kind of tied, The Good Guy Challenge and My Favorite Holiday. My favorite holiday, though, I think would win out, even though it is a Christmas book. And I loved this one so much. So if you're interested in doing like a Christmas in July, listen to this one. The audio is fantastic, or put it on your TBR for the holiday season. So this one, the audio has like a full cast, and Samantha Brentmore is in it, Teddy Hamilton. I mean, it's just phenomenal. So she is at this dinner, it's Thanksgiving, and she catches her boyfriend cheating on her, basically. It just spirals from there. She ends up fake dating her boss. They go to somebody's wedding, and there's all these like wedding activities and holiday things that are going on. They team up together. I just loved it so much. It was so much fun, but really the audio makes it. So,
Okay, there we go. Well, my next author, nobody's going to be surprised that she is on this list, and that is Grace McGinty.
color me shocked.
I know. I've read 21 of Grace's books to date. My first book with Grace was Tryst in the Dark. I read it back, and I was looking at like the dates of when I read these books, and they were all in the summer of 2022. And I just must have had like a Grace month where I just binged all of her books. So this is an Omegaverse lottery romance. This is, I will tell you, is my favorite Omegaverse, just hands down favorite Omegaverse. This is about Tryst, who in this world, it's kind of a dystopian type world. But when you're an Omega, you get, once you hit a certain age, you get put in, like the government comes in and raises you and takes care of you. And then when you hit 21, you are up for the lottery. And any man in the US, their social security number is in the system as long as they're not already married or something of that nature. They could have a girlfriend, they could have a boyfriend. It doesn't matter. They get put in this lottery as long as they're not married. And so then the government will draw, like they will have like a nightly lottery, and they will draw members or draw numbers. And if your number is called, then you have to go to wherever she's being held, and you have to bond with her immediately. And by bonding, I mean you have to screw, because that is how they bond. And Trist bucks the system quite a bit. She rejects certain things. And so the government is not happy with her, these people who are in charge. And so they keep forcing her to take more guys, because they build a pack from that. And they keep bringing people in because they're mad at her. And it's a whole thing. Loved it so much. It is my favorite Omegaverse. But my favorite Grace McGinty book, and I know that you think it's going to be Sticks and Stone, but it's not. It is 8 Seconds to Fly. I love this book so much. This is a why choose rodeo romance. Our heroine wants to be the very first female bull rider to win the championship. And so she is on this mission with her best friend, who obviously becomes part of the harem. And then her enemy in the bull riding championship, this guy that she just has never got along with. And there might be another one or two that show up along the way, but there is tragedy in the first part of this book, and she has to overcome that as well. But I loved it. I loved the idea of this heroine wanting to make it in basically a man's sport. It's really hard to make it in that world. So it's just so good. It's just good. So who is your next author?
Well, I'm just noticing that you have gone to town with how many books you've read by some of these people.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking over my list, and I'm not even that. I have a couple, but that's about it. I have not.
Yeah, when I first started, when I first really got into reading, if I liked an author, I consumed that author.
I only have a handful of authors. Karen Crumpton, Carrie Ann Cole, and Elizabeth O'Rourke, I think, are the only authors that I've read their entire backlist. There might be more that I'm just not thinking of.
I only have a couple where I've read their entire backlist, but some I've gotten close to.
Yeah, gosh. All right. So next I have Jennifer Hartman. I've read 9 of her books. I feel like such a loser.
It's okay. My next one will make you feel better. So that's okay. Keep going.
Okay. I was actually desperately looking over my list, and I'm like, who have I read the most of? So I could sort of compete with this. Okay. So my first book by her was Still Beating, which you told me to read.
Mm-hmm.
And I have 0 regrets on that. So these two, it's Cora and Dean. Was that? Yeah, Cora and Dean. They don't like each other at all. Dean has been dating her sister for years, and they don't get along at all. At all. They prank each other, but they're mean pranks. And she is going to go leave the bar. They were out for her sister's birthday, and somehow all of her stuff is missing. And so she can't find any of her things to leave. So she ends up calling her sister. Her sister's asleep. So Dean says, I'll come pick you up. So he comes to get her. And as they're driving off, they get pulled over, and then they are taken and held hostage and forced to do things. And it is quite a wild ride.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to give away spoilers, but if you like dark romance, this is a really good one.
Mm-hmm.
So then for my favorite, do you know what my favorite's going to be?
Is it Irreversible?
No.
Is it Still Beating? Or not Still
No.
Beating? I don't know.
It's The Wrong Heart.
Oh, that's what I meant to say. The Wrong Heart, not Still Beating. The Wrong Heart. I was like, the heart one. Yeah, this was my brain was
need to find the original cover for it.
I have it.
Well, there, I found it. Now I just need to come to your house and steal it.
Jeez Louise. Okay.
And I have a short amount of time to do this because we're going to see her again in a few weeks. So I need to get the original cover and get that signed. Okay, so The Wrong Heart is about Melody. And I'm trying to remember how this, oh, now I remember. Oh, it's horrible.
Mhm.
It's tragic. I bawled hysterically at the beginning because the love of her life is killed right in front of her. And there's nothing she can do about it. And it's horrible, like horrible. And then she, through a series of events, finds like emails and things, she finds the man who has her husband's heart. And she forms kind of an unhealthy attachment to him. And would you say anything else? Like, I don't want to give anything away. It is good. It is really like, it is heart wrenching. And one thing I really appreciated about this book is that a lot of times when somebody loses the love of their life, as the book goes, we find like that they actually weren't the love of the person's life. And then we kind of pick that character apart. That does not happen in this book. Like, she loved him and is devastated and is really struggling. Okay,
Okay.
go read it.
And now that I said I have the original cover, I might have sold the original cover when I got the special edition.
What the
I'll look.
fuck is
I'll
wrong
look.
with you?
Look. Anyhow, okay. So the next author I have on my list is Lilith Vincent. I've read 11 of Lilith's books. My first book that I read was First Comes Blood. This is the first in a trilogy. It is a wide cheese romance. So yes, Lilith has written a couple of wide cheese romances. This is about our heroine who is the daughter of I think he's the mayor of the town. And dad gets involved in some pretty gnarly stuff. And so she is going to be forced into marriage with one of these three guys. They are all together. Like they run the town together. But legally she can only marry one of them, but the other two are going to be there. Things don't always play out as they seem, and she's also being betrayed here and there, and we'll find out more about it when you read it. But this was my first Lilith Vincent. I really, really enjoyed it. But my favorite Lilith Vincent is Brutal Husband. This is about our heroine who is also a part of the mafia, or mafia adjacent. And she is being forced into a marriage with our hero, who some days he blows hot and some days he blows cold. Like, she can't quite tell whether he likes her or not, because some days he's really nice to her and other days he is quiet or a dick to her, and she just cannot figure him out. And then right after they get married, about a year or so after they get married, he goes missing and he is gone for 6 months, and she doesn't know if he's alive or dead. But then he shows back up and he is very angry when he shows back up. So I'm not going to say much more about that because that will give things away, but this is my favorite Lilith book.
All right, next I have, and I just switched my paper. Okay, Catherine Cowles, and I've read 10 of her books. My first book by her was Tattered Stars, which starts off the Tattered and Torn series. This is, was her name Everly, I think? And she comes back to town. Her dad is the one that kidnapped Hayes' sister, and she has come back to town, and nobody is very happy to see her. Like, they just want to forget that this has happened. And Hayes the sheriff, and some things start happening to her, and he is a good guy. So he, even though he is not happy she is here, he wants to make sure that the law is followed, and he responds, when things are not happening, when things are happening to her that should not be. And he starts to maybe fall for her a little bit, but his whole family was massively traumatized when his sister was taken by her dad. So how could this possibly even work out? And it's romantic suspense, and it's Catherine Cowles' world. No one is safe.
Mm-mm.
So then that leads me to my favorite of hers, and that is All the Missing Pieces. This came out this year. So this is about a podcaster. She is desperate to try and solve the mystery of her sister's disappearance. She believes that there's been this string of kidnappings that are all connected. And so she goes back to the town where the very first kidnapping happened, but this person also got away. And when she tries to talk to the girl, she is interrupted by the sheriff of the town, who it turns out that's actually his sister. And he is not happy that she's there. And he's not as nice as Hayes. He wants her gone, but he wants to protect his sister as well. So Catherine Cowles again, romantic suspense. No one is safe.
Okay. So my next author is Ruby Dixon.
Is this going to be a record-breaking number?
And I just would like to point out there's spin-offs of spin-offs. She has a romantasy series that I've also read. She has her dragon series I've also read. She has her bear bite series that I've also read. But I read 87 of Ruby's books.
What is your second closest after that?
One of these that I've already talked about with like the Natasha with like the 28. Probably.
Okay.
So yeah. Okay. So my very favorite, or not very favorite, my very first book of Ruby's is probably what got a lot of people started on Ruby. Which is the original Ice Planet Barbarian. I read this back in the spring of 2020, and then it just snowballed from there. This is the Big Blue Alien. This is what she is known for. So this is about Georgie, who wakes up on a bad alien ship. She's been abducted in the middle of the night from her bed, and she and some other girls are being held in a pen. This is probably one of the more darker ones of Ruby's too, because she didn't realize that it was going to turn into what it has turned into. This was going to be a one and done type situation. And so they wake up in this pen, there's bad aliens holding them, dark things happen with those, but they end up crash landing. They rebel, they end up crash landing on an ice planet where there is blue inhabitants. And they are required to get this symbiont to help them live on that ice planet. But that symbiont also will make you find your fated mate, and then it wants you to have babies with that fated mate right away. This is it. This is what started the thing. This is also my favorite because you have to go with the OG. This started everything. Do I love a bunch of the other books? Yes, I do. But if the apocalypse happened tomorrow and you told me I could only take one Ruby Dixon book with me, it would have to be the original, because the original is where it all started. So that's still my favorite.
Okay.
Okay.
Next, I have L.M. Hollering, and I've read 10 of her books. My first book was The Fall Before Flight. She is also somebody, I have several more on my bookshelf that I need to get to. So the first book I read by her was The Fall Before Flight. This is, oh, it's such a gripping tale. And audio, I have some insider information. Audio is coming for this very soon. I'll let you know as soon as we know exactly when. And let me just tell you, you are going to want to listen to this book if you've not read it yet. And if you've read it, I think I'm going to listen to the audio. It will be like my first reread next to The Wild, which you made me reread when we did a buddy read a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Has it been a couple years or a year?
Yeah.
No, it's been 2 years. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been 2 years since I reread that. So this
Yep.
would be like, yeah, my first willing reread.
I mean, it's not like it was a hardship to reread The Wild, but still, yeah.
Oh, so our heroine has found herself at Oasis, and Oasis is like kind of this like, I want to call it swanky, almost retreat based mental health center. And she is going there because her brother is kind of forcing her, but she loves her brother, so she's going to do it. He thinks he tried to kill her. He thinks she tried to kill herself. She says, I did not. But he is desperate for her to get help. So he takes her there. This is where she meets Dr. Leo. Dr. Leo is a stand-up guy, and he tries really hard to fight his feelings for how he is starting to feel attracted to her. We never ever get his point of view. It's strictly from hers, which I absolutely love, because that adds a little bit of an element of a mystery, because we don't know what Dr. Leo is thinking. But nothing is as it seems. There's some twists and turns in here, and it is phenomenal. It is also my favorite. So if you've not read this, go do it.
Okay.
You're missing out.
My next author that I have is Jamie Bagley. I've read 19 of Jamie's books. The first book I read with her was Razor's Ride. It starts up her MC series. This is about our heroine, who she's the pastor's daughter in town, and she is very innocent, and she is helping raise her younger sister when she catches the eye of one of the guys in the motorcycle club, and she gets thrown into quite the world of debauchery, because this club, they're in everybody's beds. Like sex is free and open there, and it's all sorts of crazy. But she doesn't quite fit in. So like, how does that work? So I love this. It sets up the series. It's great. But my favorite, and I thought I had the first book, I only have the third book. It's a trilogy, so I'm just gonna hold the third. But it's Gavin's story, and it starts with Gavin's song. So this Gavin is believed to be dead. Sorry, spoiler, guys. When you get into Gavin's story, we find out that he's not actually dead. He is the brother to one of the guys in the motorcycle club. He's one of the founding members of the motorcycle club, but they all believe that he was killed, and he was actually being held captive for many years. And so there is a trilogy about it. The first book sets up everything that's going to happen. You have to read all three. And then we get into when he meets the heroine and thinks she's got her own trauma as well. But I love Gavin's story. I've never reread Gavin's story because it is a very long story, and I just love it so much I'm afraid to read. So that's where we are.
All right, my next one is the author that I have read the most of. Do you know who it is?
Corinne? No, you already did Corinne.
I love these guessing games.
I know.
They're so much fun. I think as soon as I say it, you'll be like,
Elizabeth?
Oh, yeah. No.
I don't know then. You tell me. Emma?
Lisa Suzanne.
Oh, yeah, duh. Yes, Lisa. Okay.
47.
Yay!
Go me.
Go you.
Also, though, she does tend to write some of her, like she does this, where some of them are a little bit shorter, but it's one couple and they get 5 books. The first book that I read was Vegas Aces, The Tight End, #1, Tight Spot. I know it's confusing because she writes kind of in the same world, and I started kind of in the middle of this world. So we have Ben Olsen. He is what you would consider if you were to describe like your typical playboy. Like he is always with a different woman. He's part of this elite sex club that's becoming quite well known around Vegas. And so he's been photographed doing things. And Kaylee has grown up in the football world. She's the youngest of the Dalton family. Her brothers have their own stories, and they all have family dinner together. Well, Ben and Kaylee have been flirting with each other. They've been doing things under the kitchen table or dining room table during family dinner that is not family dinner appropriate. And they've been kind of secretly seeing each other, but without like any labels on it. And it is suggested one night at dinner that for her sister-in-law who runs PR suggests that Ben dates Kaylee to kind of clean up his image. So not only have they secretly been seeing each other, now they're going to fake date for his image. I really love this one. It also gets very complicated. There's 5 books in it. Really enjoyed it, and it kind of set me off on my journey with Lisa Suzanne. So then we get to my favorite, and this was really hard for me to pick because I really enjoyed all the books that I've read by her, but I ended up going with Vegas Aces, The Wide Receiver. And so here we have the 5 books. Rookie Mistake is my first one, is the first one in the book. So she does something like on a desk with her colleague and they get caught. And she thinks that they have this connection, and he basically is like, you're not worth losing my job. Like, I'm pissed at you. And so she ends up moving to Vegas to stay with her brother for a little bit. And that is when she meets, and I am drawing a blank on his name. Oh my gosh, Tristan. And things just go from there. I loved the series. I loved all of them. It's so hard to pick.
Okay. All right. So the next author that I have on my list is Samantha Christie. I've read 12 of Samantha's books. The first book that I read of hers was Igniting Ivy. This is a part of a trilogy where all of our heroes, there's 3 different heroes, and they are all firefighters. So, I mean, that's why I chose that one. But in this book, Ivy is suffering from a major loss and trauma behind that loss. And she promised the person that she lost that she would take this trip to Hawaii that they were scheduled to take and that they never got to do together. And so at the same time, our hero is a firefighter and he's gone through something. And so he has decided to go to Hawaii on a trip as well to kind of help recover or deal with the situation that happened at home. And so he gets on a helicopter to do a tour of the island, and that is where he meets Ivy, and he really is drawn to her because as they're doing this tour, she's crying. Like she is not enjoying it like most people, most tourists would as they're flying around the islands. And so he's really drawn to her, and they have a little bit of a fling in Hawaii, and then find out that they actually live in the same town back home, in the same part of the city. And so that is the start of their story. Loved it. I loved all three of those books so much. But my favorite book by Samantha Christie is No Small Bet. This is a nanny romance. This is where our hero reluctantly finds out that he is the father to a little baby girl who no longer has a mother. And she has just been born, and she is in the hospital. And he is basically like, he's set to inherit a lot of money from his grandfather, although he already has a lot of money. But he's a little bit of an asshole where he's like, I don't even want my baby, and won't even bring her home from the NICU and that whole, or from the hospital and that kind of thing. I think she's in the NICU at first, but he won't bring her home from the hospital when she's ready until grandpa steps in and says, look, I'm gonna take, like, you won't get your inheritance unless you parent for at least a year. And you can have a nanny, but you can only have one nanny. And you have to do all of these things to prove to me that you are being a parent to this child. Like, he won't even name this baby for weeks until, until he gets to a certain point. And that is where our heroine is brought in. She is the nanny. She is an amputee. She's missing part of her leg. She has a prosthesis that like is old. So if she turns a certain way, it falls off, and it's pretty funny. It sets things up. But she just falls in love with this baby girl. And I just love the story so much. Obviously.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so my next author is Elizabeth O'Rourke. I've read 19 of her books, which does include Priest, which is a novella that you can get after you finish the parallel series. So if you're looking to try and get her books and you're like, wait, she doesn't have 19, that's where I got 19 from. So my first read from her was the parallel series. It is written under L. O'Rourke in case you go looking for it, but this is Elizabeth. And this book I found because we had read you had read The Surviving Trace. You told me to read The Surviving Trace, and I was just desperate for some sort of amnesia, time travel, something. And I found this one, which it's nothing like The Surviving Trace. It's nothing like time travel. It's nothing like amnesia, but it's everything like that, if that makes sense. So I love this book so much. It was fantastic. So we have Quinn. Quinn is planning her marriage, and she keeps having these weird like blackouts, and she feels like there's somebody that there's just missing pieces of her life she doesn't get. And she ends up in the hospital in the ER, and her attending doctor, she knows him. She knows his name. She's like calls out like Nick, and he's like, what? And he has also been dreaming of her. And so but we don't understand how these two people who don't know each other know each other. And it's a mystery. You really have to read the series. It is so good. So if you like time travel and amnesia, this is a great book to go read, but don't be expecting time travel and amnesia. I'm not making any sense, I don't think. Just go read this. It is so good. Okay, so then that takes me to my favorite by Elizabeth O'Rourke, which was pretty much impossible for me to pick because I love all of her books. And so I could go by like trope and all of that. But I ended up going with my favorite bad decision, which is her most recent release. And I know I've talked about this a lot. It has enemies to lovers. So I'll go brief on this one. Enemies to lovers and sisters X. They're climbing a mountain together. They are stuck together. They don't like each other. And we always, the old saying about really not like that thin line between love and hate might be happening here. But how can she act on that when her sister, who hasn't dated him for like a decade, believes that he is the one that got away? And her and her sister are close. So that's not a betrayal. She's wanting to go down that road. So loved it.
Okay. So the next author I have is Kristen Ashley, and I have read 10 of her books. When I was doing research for this, I was like, oh, I know what my very favorite or very first book was of Kristen's, and I was wrong. Like, I forgot I even read this book. So the first book I read by her was Own the Wind, and I read that back in November of 2020. And it is a motorcycle romance. Everybody had said it was amazing. I think I gave it like 3 or 4 stars if I remember right. It didn't stick with me, let's put it that way. All I remember is that the heroine is the daughter to one of the guys in the MC, and then she gets with another guy in the MC, and he doesn't feel like he should have her because she's such a good girl. So, there's that. But shortly after that, I discovered my favorite, and that is the Golden Dynasty, which then led me down a path of reading all of these books in her Fantasyland series and then some. So this is book 2 in the Fantasyland series. I know people say you have to read them in order, but I started with book 2. So, and then I went back and read book 1. But basically there is a parallel world next to ours, and we have a twin in that world. And so in this book, Cersei wakes up in a pen in, think of like Game of Thrones, Dothraki type situation. She wakes up in this pen just before a bride hunt where her twin has switched places with her. Now, she's not aware of this happening until later in the book, but we know, especially from the first book, you would have, if you've read the first one before you read this one, then you know that's what's happening. And she is hunted down and captured by the king of all of these horde warriors, which he goes by a different name. But he then makes her his queen, and there is the communication isn't there. She doesn't know the language. It's it's a primitive horde type situation, and she has to survive all of that while still going like, why am I here? What is here? Where, like, she's completely, sidetracked. I love this book. I love this book. I read it at least 4 times a year. It is my favorite. It's one of my top reads ever, and I just thank you, Kristen. So in here.
Okay, my next book, or my next author, is Lauren Rowe. I've read 12 of her books. The first book I read was Hero, which you told me to read. I desperately searched to find this cover because I like the original cover a lot. But this is just, when I think of Colby, this is who I think of. Like, I picture this guy. So Colby is a firefighter. He is desperately trying to do his job and save a baby. And he gets trapped in the house and almost dies. And so he is in ICU for a very long time. And, oh, I can't remember her name. Our heroine, oh, that's going to drive me nuts. Our heroine is his physical therapist. She's the nurse in there. And so when he wakes up a couple of times, she's who he sees. And he thinks like she's this angel. He professes his love for her. Well, when you start the book, I was bawling, and I read this book years ago, and I can remember exactly where I was standing, working on my fence line, like to the T-post of where I was standing, listening to this book, just crying hysterically because the beginning just was gut-wrenching. And so she has definite reasons for not wanting to get involved with somebody who has a high-risk job. She has, I think, 2 or 3 kids, and so she's a single mom. And oh, it was just so good. And he ends up seeing her a lot because she ends up being his rehab therapist to help him get better. And oh, it was just phenomenal. And it's also my favorite.
Okay, well, that one was easy.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last author I have is Zoe Draven. I've read 20 of Zoe's books. And the first book I picked up from her was right after I read this one. And I wanted to get the same kind of feels. And so it was suggested, this was back in 2020. It was suggested that I read Captive of the Horde King. And so I picked it up. And at the time, this and I think the second book were the only 2 that were out in the series. And then I had to wait for the rest. So this is an alien romance, but it's a little bit different. It is where we left Earth, and there are refugees on the planet of Dakar. And they have mingled with the locals there, but they're in little settlements, and they're not allowed to do, like, her brother in the beginning of this. Our heroine's brother is burning the fields because he's heard that brings in the harvest. Now, humans are starving and stuff. They're not really taken care of the way they're supposed to be taken care of. But when her brother burns the land, that is like a no-no because it upsets one of their main goddess, I believe is what it was. And so these horde warriors come in to find out who did that. And our heroine takes the blame of her younger brother. And instead of being whipped or killed or whatever by these guys, the lead horde warrior takes her to be his bride. And so again, it is a horde warrior situation. She's living in a tent situation. It really has a lot of the same feels to it. And loved it so much. And it is my favorite because it started the whole journey. And I loved almost everything I've read by her. But this is always going to be my first and my favorite.
All right.
So who's your last?
So my last author is Vi Keeland. I've read 15 of her books, which actually surprised me that I didn't have more because I was on quite the Vi Keeland kick for a while. So my first book of hers was The Summer Proposal, and that's where this lady is out on a blind date. She's waiting for her blind date to arrive. This guy sits down and they have some great chemistry, and she thinks that he's the blind date. Well, he's not. And so when her actual blind date shows up, he gets up, he gives her a hockey ticket and says, "Hey, if this doesn't work out, come see this game with me." And so he leaves. Well, the real blind date, there's like no connection. So she's going home and decides, "Hey, I'm going to stop by this hockey game." So she goes and she's disappointed that the seat next to her is empty, like he's not there. And it turns out he's actually one of the hockey players. And so that starts them off. But he offers a summer proposal of them just like having a fling through the summer, no strings attached after that. And this is such a good book. I almost picked it as my favorite, but I'm going to go with The Unraveling because I still think about this book. I do have to warn you, this is a psychological thriller. It is not a love story, and it even tells you that in the blurb. Meredith is the psychiatrist. She is out she was in something traumatic happened, and the other person that was involved in this traumatic thing seems to have picked up the pieces of his life and moved on. And she sees him one day like laughing on the street corner, and she doesn't understand how he is okay. So she decides to start following him, thinking that if she can see him living his life and being okay, that then she can also maybe start to be okay as well. So she's stalking him. Like she's not really following him anymore. She's stalking him. And he shows up to her practice as a new patient. It's so incredibly good if you like a psychological thriller, which I love. So, ooh, maybe that can be a convincing Jessica. I'll convince you to read psychological thrillers. Calla Reed has a couple.
Yeah, no, if there isn't romance, I don't want it. So,
well, if there isn't real people, I don't want it, but I still have to read aliens.
Yeah, it's not that rough. Okay.
A psychological thriller wouldn't be that rough either.
I don't want it for no romance. At least I'm giving you romance. Period. End of story.
Huh.
You just set me up to not like something. I don't know. So, anyhow, that's it though, right? That's all of ours?
We are done.
We are done. Okay. Well, there you go. First and favorites.
Sorry. Yes, first and favorites. So again, let us know those authors you'd like to see if you want to see us do this again. And make sure you check back on Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, and usually Wednesdays for new videos from us.
Thanks for watching, guys. We will see you in the next video.